Yesterday, Ciarán Ahern announced that areas in 12 counties from Donegal to Wexford are officially suffering a water drought. This is at a time when we've seen tragic flash floods in Texas, wildfires outside Marseille, and an extended heatwave in many countries across Europe, which is about to hit Ireland. And before I came in here, I just got an alert on my phone from Met Éireann that they've issued a hot weather warning. And don't get me wrong, the bit of sun is great, but we need to recognise that this isn't normal for Ireland. And our current drought is a result of drier than normal autumn, winter and spring. And this is climate action. This is climate change in action, Taoiseach. Paradoxically, we've actually just had a wetter than normal June, but because of our creaking water infrastructure, we know that almost 40% of our treated water is lost. There's more leaks in our pipes than coming out of cabinet meetings. The state of our water infrastructure is holding up the development of much needed housing, and new housing is plugging into crumbling old pipes, putting unsustainable pressure on the whole system. We're facing water restrictions ultimately. Just ask the residents of Darglewood in Knockline, in my own constituency in Dublin South West, about our water infrastructure. They've faced over 12 water outages this year alone. The broader picture, Taoiseach, is our climate preparedness and climate action, or lack thereof. Ever since the programme for government was published, the Labour Party, we've had serious concerns about this government's commitment to addressing the climate crisis. Like last week, Minister O'Brien in the Climate Committee basically waved the white flag in saying that the best we can hope for now is that we might get about halfway to meeting our 2030 emission reductions targets. Taoiseach, people want to take climate action. But we know from a recent survey carried out by your own climate department that people's overriding feeling when it comes to this government and climate action is frustration. People feel hamstrung by this government's inaction and delay in providing even the most basic measures to allow them to engage in climate action. People want to retrofit their homes, but the system of grants restricts this to well-off households with significant savings. We want to see in the Labour Party a street-by-street retrofitting scheme, backed by green loans. People want to switch to public transport, but the services aren't there, or they're already at capacity. We need more rail, and in the short term, projects like Bus Connects need to be prioritised. How, in God's name, has it taken 8 years and counting to get a few new bus lanes put in? In the absence of public transport, people feel like they can't make the switch from petrol or diesel to EVs because our charging infrastructure is so lacking. Farmers are getting mixed messages, and meanwhile there's insufficient compensation schemes in place for necessary changes to our agricultural policy and ensuring a just transition. Earlier this week, Taoiseach, the European Commission published its latest environmental implementation review of Ireland. It identified a 3.3 billion investment gap here. So my question, Taoiseach, is will this government commit to providing the investment required and to filling that gap so that we can avoid climate disaster, we can improve the infrastructure that's going to help us do that, and to support people to make the climate positive changes in their lives that they want to make?
Well, thank you, Deputy Ahern, for raising the question. And I think it's welcome to have a question here on climate, because I'm not sure we're having the level of focus and discussion as a Parliament, as a Dáil, on this issue, and the climate emergency hasn't gone away, far from it. And we do need to look at how we can speed up, I suppose, and accelerate the pace of change that needs to take place. And I'd also suggest, we had a Cabinet Committee on Climate this week. I think we also need to have a conversation about how we bring people with us. I think you've given some good ideas there. I too know people who'd like to retrofit their home or would like to switch to the electric vehicle, and cost is still a barrier, and we need as a government to reflect on that. So the short answer to your question is yes, and you will begin to see, I think, real and meaningful intent when we publish our National Development Plan, hopefully at the end of this month, which will, I think, show a commitment in areas like investing in our water infrastructure, supporting Irish Water, how we're going to accelerate the delivery of renewable energy, but also how we invest more in transport, including, of course, public transport as well. As I say, the Cabinet Committee on Climate Action, Environment and Energy met this week, and there was a good and detailed discussion on climate policy. Now, the latest data from the Environmental Protection Agency, and we had a presentation from them at it, does show that Ireland's emissions do continue to fall, and are falling for the third year in a row, and they are at their lowest level in 3 decades. I say that not because we are where we need to be, but what we don't want to inject into the debate, and you're not, is a sense of kind of fatalism. we are able to make progress as a country, and we are able to make more. Emissions decreased by 2% in 2024. They've decreased by 10.6% from 21 to 2024. And Ireland now has the lowest level of greenhouse gas emissions in 35 years. And I think this is more significant when you consider that we've 1.5 million more people living in the country and over 1 million more homes in that period of time as well. So we're achieving reductions at a time when our economy is thankfully continuing to grow strongly. However, you're entirely correct. We've got a long way to go to get to our 2030 climate targets, and certainly no white flag at all from this government. So the next phase has to be about acceleration. It has to be about how we can do more and how we can do it more quickly. And that's why the government has announced our intention to establish a new climate investment clearinghouse to try and accelerate progress on our energy transition. Because really, to be honest, I think that's the big dial change, actually, if we can get to that energy transition and stop using dirty fuels and start actually being able to produce clean, renewable energy. There's a number of commitments in our programme for government in relation to climate, strengthening governing structures around the Climate Action Plan, achieving energy independence by harnessing renewable energy resources, ramping up home retrofits, improving grants, that's a commitment we've given, enabling communities to secure grid access for local renewable projects, and supporting the Just Transition Commission to ensure that no community is left behind. I would point out one of the big decisions we made in the last government was the establishment of a climate and nature fund as well. So we are now putting billions aside to actually be able to invest in that transition. I've read the Commission's report on our implementation of EU environmental law. I think it's a mixed bag, is an honest evaluation, but it does point to some serious areas of progress over the last year, including in biodiversity, our clean air strategy, and indeed the publication of successive climate action plans, and of course that binding legislation.
Deputy Ahern.
Thanks, Tánaiste, and I'm glad to hear about your focus on accelerating what we're doing, but the fact remains that we aren't meeting our climate targets, and while there was a 6% reduction in emissions in 23, there was only a 2% reduction in 2024, so the EPA are saying that we're in fact going backwards, and this is because we're seeing significantly slower progress than needed on many fronts, like onshore wind, offshore wind, electric vehicles, district heating, the use of biomethane, and that's not to mention the impact of new LNG fossil fuel terminals that this government is promoting, or data centres that aren't required to use renewable energy. We're told all the time, Tánaiste, that money is no object to us taking action on climate. So will you please pull out all the stops with the new National Development Plan? Will you invest in the infrastructure we need to mitigate the climate crisis, like our water pipe network, which is so bad it isn't able to ensure people have water right after a month of abnormally heavy rain? Please invest in our future, and please support legislation for a future generations commissioner who will challenge the short-termism that we've seen from too many governments and embed future thinking across government. So I'll ask again, Tánaiste, will the revised National Development Plan be framed to ensure we meet our climate targets, and will you commit to addressing that environmental investment gap?
Here.
Yeah, we are committed to addressing the investment that is required. I'm just being very honest, I'm not convinced currently of the need for more legislation in this space. I actually think we have a lot of legislation now, but I do think it's an implementation issue now in terms of how quickly we can accelerate delivery. I would just point out most sectors of our economy are now seeing a decrease in emissions, including sectors like agriculture and transport. Our electricity is now cleaner than ever before. 2024 marks the first year with no peat used for power generation, a symbolic end to a high carbon era, and this does reflect the structural transformation that's underway in terms of our energy network. Wind energy provided 48% of Ireland's power last February. Last January, Ireland hit the important milestone of hitting 5 gigawatts of installed onshore wind capacity. There were 23% more EVs sold in April of this year than April of last year. Home retrofitting is scaling up. So I'm agreeing with you that we need to go further, but I think we're now beginning to see the direction of travel. We have to back that up now, yes, with investment, but also with making sure that projects are delivered more quickly. I think particularly in the area of offshore renewable energy. Thank you.